The coffee maker still works the way it always has. You press the button at 7:40, the same as every morning since you moved into this apartment, and it gurgles and spits and fills the room with the smell that means the day has officially started. You have $11 in checking. You don't know that yet. You're thinking about whether there's milk. The phone buzzes on the counter while you're reaching for a mug. It's your dad. Not a call, a text, which is already strange because he calls. You read it twice. The first time it doesn't go in, the second time it does, and the mug is still empty in your hand. He's kept it short. The way people keep things short when saying more would make it harder. The transfer stopped this month. You're 23. It's time. He says he loves you. He means it. None of that changes the number on the screen when you open the banking app out of pure reflex, the way you'd check the weather. $11. And below it, in the gray text you've never once read in your life, a row that says rent due in 6 days, $1,150. Here's the thing nobody warns you about. The fear isn't the number. You can almost handle the number. Numbers are just math, and math has answers. What hits you, standing there with the coffee going cold, is something underneath the number. You have no idea how any of this actually works. Not the rent. You know rent. You don't know what happens if you don't pay it. You don't know what an APR is, really not in a way you could explain. You don't know how much electricity costs or when the bill comes or what happens to the food in the fridge if the card gets declined at the register. For 23 years, there was a system running quietly underneath your life, and you never saw the machine, and now you're being told the machine was a person, and the person just stepped away. You scroll up, you're looking for something, anything, a cushion you forgot about. There's the checking account. There's no savings account. You never opened one. Why would you? There's a credit card with a limit you've never come close to, and have also never paid attention to. You start doing the kind of math you've never done before. The involuntary kind, where your brain just begins listing things because it has to. Rent, $1,150. Phone, 60-something. You've never actually looked. The streaming things, 3 of them, 4, that come out on dates you don't know. Food, transit to the job that pays you, what, every 2 weeks? The next paycheck is 9 days out. Rent is due in 6. You sit down. Not because you decide to, because the arithmetic does it for you, quietly. The way it'll keep doing all month, more is leaving than is coming in. The gap has a shape now, and for the first time in your entire life, there is no one standing behind you whose job it is to close it. Childhood didn't end with a birthday. It ended with a due date. The panic does a strange thing. It peaks, really peaks, a few minutes where you just sit and your chest is tight and the coffee maker clicks off on its own, and then it burns down to something colder and more useful. You open the Notes app. You don't decide to be calm. You just run out of the energy it takes to keep spinning. And what's left underneath is a list. You start typing every single thing that takes money out of your life. Not the amounts yet, just the names. Rent, phone, electric, internet, the card minimum, whatever that is, transit, food, 2 streaming services you remember, and then a third you only remember because it charged you last Tuesday. A gym you went to in February. By the time you stop, there are 14 lines. And looking at 14 lines is somehow worse and better at the same time. Worse because there are 14, better because they're finally outside your head where you can see them. Then you do the part that actually matters. The part no one ever sat you down and explained. You rank them, not by size. By what happens if you don't pay. This is the whole brutal skill, you realize. Typing a little number next to each line. It's not about what you owe. It's about what each unpaid thing does to you. Rent first, miss rent, and eventually you have nowhere to do any of the rest of this from. Electric and internet next, because the cold goes off and the job you do from your laptop goes with it. Transit, because it's the thread connecting you to the paycheck. Cut that and you cut the only money coming in. Phone, because half your adult life routes through it now. Then and only then the food number, which can flex, which can become rice and eggs if it has to. And at the very bottom, the streaming, the gym, the things that felt like part of your life this morning and reveal themselves now as exactly what they are. Removable. You can't pay everything. Adulthood is knowing what to pay first. The phone lights up while you're deep in it. It's a story from someone you went to school with. Call him the guy who never had this morning. He's on a beach somewhere, a real one, posting a drink with a little umbrella in it and a caption about quitting the grind for a week. His parents still fill his account on the first, the way yours did until 40 minutes ago. He looks, in the photograph, exactly as free as you used to feel, without ever noticing you felt it. You look at the umbrella drink, then back at your 14 ranked lines, and you don't envy him the way you'd expect. You notice something else instead. Something you can't unsee now. He isn't building anything. He's just standing on a floor someone else is holding up, smiling, with no idea where the floor stops. You go back to the list and start putting real numbers on it. Rent, $1,150, fixed first. Electric, you find an old email, $74 last month. Internet, $50. Transit, you figure $30 to reach the next paycheck if you're careful. Phone, $65. That's the spine. You add it up with your thumb and the screen says $1,369 in things that aren't optional against $11 now and a paycheck you finally look up, $1,420 in 9 days. Rent in 6. For about 10 seconds the math almost works, and that's its own kind of terrifying, because almost means there's no slack at all. You move rent's due date and the paycheck's due date next to each other, and the order is wrong by 3 days. The triage holds. You can see the shape of a month where everything gets paid, but only if nothing at all goes sideways. And you have just spent 23 years being the kind of person who has no idea how often things go sideways. The 3-day gap is the first problem you have to solve with your mouth instead of your money, and that turns out to be harder. You draft the email to the landlord 4 times. The first version explains too much, the cutoff, the dad, the whole story, and you delete it because it sounds like begging. The 4th version is 2 sentences. Rent will land on the 7th this month instead of the 4th. Is that a problem? You sit with your thumb over send for longer than you'd admit because some part of you is bracing for the answer that ends the apartment. Then you send it and then you wait. And the waiting is its own small education in what it feels like to have no one to hand the fear to. He writes back that evening. Not the disaster you pictured, but not free either. Find this once, he says, but he needs it on the 1st going forward, so get yourself a month ahead. And there it is, quietly. The favor comes with a bill attached. He's not refusing you. He's telling you the slack you just borrowed has to be paid back into the system by you soon. You read it twice and feel 2 things at once, the relief that the apartment is safe this month, and the cold understanding that this month is now a thing you have to engineer on purpose before it engineers you. The monster wasn't the landlord. The monster is that from here on, the buffer between you and the street is a number you have to build with your own hands, so you build the machine. Not a metaphor, an actual thing, on 1 page, because that morning you assumed adulthood was some vast invisible competence other people were issued, and you'd missed the line for. It isn't. You open a fresh note and you write 3 numbers. Income, $1,420 every 2 weeks. Call it roughly $2,840 a month. Fixed costs, the spine from last night, the rent and the power and the line to the job, $1,369. You subtract. What's left is $1,471 for the whole rest of being alive. Food, transit beyond the bare thread, the card, anything that breaks, anything you want. That's the budget, that's it. Income, minus the things that aren't optional, equals the truth of what you can actually spend. Nobody ever wrote it down for you because writing it down takes 4 minutes and changes everything. And somehow those are the things no one teaches. You go further. You set the rent to pull itself automatically 2 days after each paycheck clears, so the single most important payment in your life stops depending on you remembering it on a bad day. 1 bill on rails forever. Then you go hunting in the budget for leaks. And here's where it gets specific and a little embarrassing. The 3 streaming services, $42 a month, $504 a year for things you watch maybe 4 hours total. The gym you quit attending in February but never canceled, $39 a month, which means you have paid $156 to not go to a gym. The food number, where you actually look at where it went last month and find that $310 of it was delivery. Not groceries, delivery. The same meals you could make for 1/5 of the price, marked up for the privilege of not standing up. You cancel 2 of the 3 services, you cancel the gym. You don't kill takeout entirely, because a budget you hate is a budget you'll quit, but you cap it, and the cap alone hands you back nearly $300 a month you were lighting on fire without ever deciding to. Do you actually know where your money goes each month? Not roughly. The real number. The leak you'd find if you looked. Most people never look, and the not looking costs more than the leak. Then the last piece, the one that feels almost pointless when you start it. You open a savings account, the thing you never bothered with, and you move the first scraped together amount into it. It's small. It's whatever the canceled subscriptions and the cap takeout actually free up. And when you do the honest math, it's about $130 a month, not a fortune, the 2 dead streaming services, the gym, the delivery you reined in. You put in the first $130 and stare at it, because $130 against a $1,150 rent looks like nothing. But you set the target anyway. Feed it $130 a month until it clears $500, then keep going to $1,000. At that rate, the first real cushion is 2-3 months out, a buffer. And here's the fact that reorganizes your whole picture of the world, the one you trip over while reading about why you should bother. Surveys keep finding that a huge share of adults, repeatedly measured around a third or more, can't cover a sudden $400 expense without borrowing or selling something. $400, not $4,000. A car repair, a tooth, a vet. The thing that quietly wrecks people isn't the big disaster. It's the small one, arriving on a day the account is empty, and a buffer of even $500 to $1,000 doesn't make you rich. It does something more specific than that. It turns the disaster into an errand. The thing you were never taught fits on one page. You look at the page when it's done. A budget, an automated rent, a capped leak, a buffer with a target. 5 things. The terror of the morning. The vast, unknowable machine. It was 5 things, and you built them between dinner and midnight. Financial adulthood, it turns out, isn't a gift some people are born holding. It's a structure, and structures can be built by anyone willing to spend one bad evening building them. Which is a nice thing to believe at midnight, with the page glowing and nothing yet tested. The plan exists. It's clean, it's yours, it fits in your hand, but a plan on a page has never once been hit by anything. And the whole reason a buffer exists, the only reason, is that something eventually comes to hit it. It comes on a Tuesday, which is almost funny, because for the rest of your life this is the day you'll measure things against. You're 2 months into the page. The rent has pulled itself on schedule twice now, and you watched it go without flinching, which was new. The buffer crossed $400 a couple weeks back, fed $130 at a time by the dead subscriptions, and the takeout you didn't order, not much, the smallest cushion that counts as a cushion at all. And then you turn the key in your car before work, and it does the thing. The click, the silence where the engine should be, the dashboard lighting up like a small useless Christmas. Battery's dead, and when the guy at the shop looks under the hood, he finds it isn't just the battery, it's the thing that charges the battery, and the number he says out loud is $380. 2 months ago, $380 would have been the end of the world. You can say that plainly now because you remember exactly who you were back then, standing with the empty mug, $11 to your name, no idea how any of it worked. That version of you, hit with $380 on a Tuesday, would have reached for the credit card with the limit he never paid attention to and started the slow, quiet bleed that ruins people, the balance that grows while you sleep, the minimum payment that's mostly interest, the hole you dig by standing still. $380 at that morning's version of your life wasn't a car repair. It was the first domino. You pay it from the buffer. That's the whole event. You open the savings account you opened out of grim obligation. You move $380 of the maybe $410 sitting there. The shop runs your card. It clears. You drive to work 11 minutes late. It nearly empties the cushion. You're down to pocket change in there again, starting the climb back to $500 from almost zero. But it cleared. You didn't borrow. You didn't call anyone. And that's the part that lands more than the relief. It was close. It was the whole cushion, and it still held. The thing that makes an emergency was never the size of the cost. It was not having the cost on the day it lands. You had it barely, because 2 months ago you started putting $130 somewhere on purpose. Remove the empty account, and a disaster quietly resises itself into an errand you ran before lunch. The net you build yourself holds tighter than the one you were born into. Your phone buzzes that night, and it's the beach guy again, except the tone is different now. Something about his car too, or maybe it's a deposit, a bill, doesn't matter which, and the gist of the message is that he's calling home about it. Still funded, still cushioned by an account he didn't fill. And the first time anything goes wrong, his move is the same one it's always been. Reach back toward the parent. You read it and you don't feel superior. Exactly. You feel the gap between you open up in a direction you didn't expect. He still has the bigger account. He also has, you understand now, no idea whether he could do this alone, because he's never once had to, and the not knowing is its own kind of debt, invisible, untested, due someday with interest. You sit with your nearly emptied buffer and the car running fine in the lot, and you notice the feeling, the one you've been calling lost this whole time. The cutoff, the empty account, the morning everything got harder. You'd filed it under things taken from you. And it is that, but sitting here, having just absorbed a hit that would have flattened you 2 months ago, on a cushion you scraped together $130 at a time with no one's help, the feeling reorganizes itself one more time. Nobody is behind you. That was the terror back at the start. Tonight, the same fact reads as its exact opposite. Nobody is behind you, which means nobody had to be. You did that. The floor under you is one you laid yourself, board by board, and that's the only kind that can't be pulled away from under you while you sleep. The first of the month comes around again, and this time you're the one who fills the account. It's strange how quiet it is. You'd built the whole morning up in your head, the morning you'd pay a full month yourself, no transfer landing from anywhere, no one behind you, and you expected it to feel like something. A milestone, a held breath, a moment. Instead you pay rent and it pulls itself on schedule, on the first now, the way the landlord asked for back when that felt impossible. You pay the electric, the internet, the phone, the line to the job. You move the month's $130 into the buffer, which is climbing back from the car, a couple hundred again, on its slow way to the 1,000 you targeted on that first bad night. You glance at the page, the same page, a budget, an automation, a cap, a buffer, and everything on it is handled, and the handling took you about 6 minutes. That's the part no one tells you the truth about. You thought the destination was wealth, some number that arrives and announces you've made it. It isn't. The thing you were actually walking toward this whole month was smaller and better than wealth. It was the morning the next bill stops being a threat. The fear that woke you a few months ago with $11 and a due date, that specific fear, the one underneath the number, the one that was never about money but about not knowing how any of it worked, it's just gone. Not conquered, not white-knuckled into submission, gone. The way a draft stops when you finally find the window and close it. You know how it works now. You built the thing that handles it. The machine runs whether or not you're afraid, and so you stopped being afraid. So here's the honest question, the one this whole month asks you, and I'll just hand it to you straight. Could you survive the month no one paid for you? Not in theory, the real version, rent. The bill you forgot the Tuesday that goes sideways, covered by a structure you built and nobody bailed out. Most people never find out the answer until the morning they have no choice, and they find out the hard way, the way you did. If you don't know your answer yet, that's worth sitting with. And it's most of why this channel exists, for the version of you standing with the cold coffee, who was never handed the manual either. Stay, if that's you. We'll keep walking through the boring machinery that turns out to be everything. There's a little left over when the bills are done. Not much. The gap between what came in and what the page required, the slack you didn't have on day one and have now. You look at it for a second. You could move it into the buffer, some months you will. Tonight you don't. You order the takeout you capped but didn't kill, the good one, the one you actually like, and you pay for it without the math starting up in your chest, without the involuntary listing, without anyone's permission or anyone's account but your own. You eat it at the counter where the coffee went cold a few months back. Same counter, different person. The phone stays face down, and for once there's no number on it you're afraid to see.